Get ready to cut through the BS with the Voiceover Gurus. It's the Voiceover Gurus podcast.
Excellent. Okay, welcome back to the Voiceover Gurus podcast. I'm Linda Bruno, and, it may seem obvious that this person should be on the podcast more regularly, but he never has any time, so I got seriously lucky this week. Yes, because your schedule is all over the place, but it's our in-house. Well, first of all,
let's get going now.
He owns the freaking studio.
I don't have times for long introductions.
He owns the freaking studio, Digital Waterworks, but he's the in-house producer for the Voiceover Gurus demos. Dave Goldberg. Hello.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having
good.
It's good to be back. I don't even remember the last time we did this.
There goes my my watch. It's been a couple of years, I think, since you were on the podcast.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be a good week because you had some things shift around. So we are in the same studio building. We are in different studios, but if you're watching this on the YouTube channel,
you're over there somewhere.
You'll see my hand through the window because I'm basically on the other side of our main vocal booth. We just thought it would be easier to record like this, and kind of cool too, because I like you have your setup there with Pro Tools. So Pro Tools, that's your main editing software?
Yeah, there's a long story behind my relationship with Pro Tools, and it started out of necessity because back in the day, when there weren't as many choices, you would get agencies calling you, and they wouldn't say what kind of DAW or digital audio workstation are you using. It was more of what version Pro Tools do you use? So it was just assumed that you were using Pro Tools. And in the early days, we're talking 25 years ago, there were very few choices, and Pro Tools was one of the first out there. Mm-hmm. So that's the short story as to why I use Pro Tools. But if I was starting over today, using a digital audio workstation, I probably would not. I probably would jump onto the Adobe Audition, which is part of the Creative Cloud family of products.
Now, a couple of the other editors here at the studio use that, right?
Yeah, Adobe? In fact, I use it too. I use Audition at home because I don't have a Pro Tools setup at home. Mm-hmm. I just, out of necessity, found it to be a better choice for my use at home. I have a very small home studio. It's not nearly as capable as what we have here at Digital Waterworks. So in addition to many of my other hats, I also do voiceovers myself. And I use that home studio just for auditions or for actually, I don't usually start projects at home, but I might do a project and then the client reaches out after hours and says, are you able to do a pickup or repair or an add-on to something we had? And if it doesn't have to match exactly, because there's no way my home studio would never match here, but if it doesn't have to match, I'll use the home studio, and I use Audition. But here at the studio, I use Pro Tools.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've talked about this before on the podcast that I use Pro Tools only because it was the first thing I learned.
Right.
And I just know all the shortcuts, and it's just easy, and I'm too lazy to try and learn something else. But yeah, because Pro Tools is overkill, and plus it's kind of outdated in some.
It's dated. It's dated. My nickname is Pro Stools. And listen, I'm not endorsed by them, so I can say that.
Right.
Yeah, it gets the job done. I don't really have any obstacles with it. I think Audition is a better value. You get more bells and whistles, where to have Pro Tools do the same thing that Audition does, you'd have to spend extra money on plugins, a lot of which comes with Audition out of the box. So, and it's much more affordable. It's a more affordable product.
But when you think about voice talent and what we have to do, which is not much, I mean, simple mono single track recording, unless you decided you wanted to go into production and mix things. But would you ever record in stereo your voice?
No, there's no need to record. Your voice is mono. What comes out of your your voice is mono, mono meaning single channel. Once it enters the room and the sound waves start bouncing around the room, then it actually becomes stereo. But the voice doesn't become stereo.
Right.
The ambient sound in the room becomes stereo. But that's not what you want to capture in a demo, which we're going to be talking about today, or in a finished product either. It's mono. It's one microphone.
I think there's some confusion. Some people think they need to record in stereo, and I'm always like, no, that's not. And I know there's some coaches that are telling people to do that too, which is insane to me.
I've never heard of that before. Not to mention, not that it really matters, but a stereo file is twice as large as a mono file. So if your mono file was 1 megabyte, a stereo file is going to be 2 megabytes. But there's no left and right to your voice. So there's no, and not to mention the majority of microphones, especially the microphones that voiceover people are using, are mono microphones. There's only one output on that microphone, even if it's a USB microphone. It's just a single element, a single pickup, not a left and right. There aren't two elements in there capturing the left and right side. There are microphones that are stereo microphones, and they literally have two XLR cables. They have a left and a right, but not for use in our industry.
We don't have to worry about that. Yeah.
No, that's for people who are doing like music recording or field recording. That would be a stereo microphone.
So people, they know us as performance coaches. That's our focus here at the Voiceover Gurus. And it's like a little well-kept secret that we also produce demos. Because there's a lot of coaches out there that, do promote that as their service, like their main service, or it's like a demo house or a demo factory.
Right.
We are definitely not that. That is, it's a very much a customized situation. But we've got the one that you finished today is fantastic for one of our students. I cannot wait to share it with him. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the whole demo process and what you think. Okay, you as someone who also casts voices, when you're listening to demos, what shouldn't you do on a demo?
Oh, well, there's a lot of stuff that you shouldn't do. There's probably, like where do we, I think it's even more. Let's. We're not going to edit this, but I think we should actually start, because a lot of the people who are watching this or listening to this podcast may not even know what a voiceover demo really is. I mean, it's your voice, it's recorded, but what is it? And so let's just start there first, just as a little primer. So a demo or a demo reel is something that should show off your voice, and it should show off your capabilities, your range, your diversity. If you have diversity, not everybody does. There are some people who, they're just straight ahead narrators, and great for you. But if you are a voiceover talent that has the ability to have range, and you can give a deep read and you can give a high read, and then that, the best of should be featured. It's your best of album. It's your greatest hits album is what it is. Which leads into what should or should not your demo, what are the problems or things that make a good demo or a bad demo. So length. The overall length, right? The runtime of the demo is something that's very, very important. None of what I'm going to talk about today is law.
This is your.
Yeah, this is just sort of experience and just knowing there's industry standards. Most of the demos that we produce are between 60 and 90 seconds, a minute and a half. And there are a few reasons for that. Number one, you're not putting full spots on there. So even if your demo is made up of actual material that you have been paid for, and it wasn't created as part of the demo, well, then your pieces are typically going to be 30 or 60 seconds long, broadcast length. But you don't need to put full start to finish spots on your demo. Nobody has the time to listen to 6-7 minutes of demo material.
Right, or the patience.
or the patients, right? And they're getting a lot. You have to assume that they're getting many submissions, not just yours and 2 or 3 others. Assume that they're getting 50 or 100. So the overall runtime is important. And again, I think the sweet spot is 60 to 90 seconds. If you talk to most engineers or producers that cut demos for people, you'll probably get the same consensus. I haven't searched the web, but I'm sure if you typed into Google,
that seems to be the
how long should a voiceover demo be? You're going to see about 90 seconds. So the other things you want. So we talked about variety, right? Versatility. You want to show your dynamic range. If you have if you're a very up person, but you can also do a serious read, you should show that. I think it's important to start with something that really grabs the listener out of the gate. That may or may not be your best example, but it should be one that really grabs them. So I would not start with
some low-key.
the quiet,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was. Those are not the one. That's just asking somebody to hit stop and just go off to the next submission.
Right.
So get something if it's got some cool sound effects or some great music in the beginning, and just, like really catches your attention. Assume that they've listened to 5 others that really blew. And then they're getting to yours, and they're about to go to lunch. You want them to start listening to yours and go, oh, whoa, what's this? And once they're on that hook, once the fish has bitten the hook, now you got them. So your next one should be pretty strong as well. The third one is where you can sort of take a chance. If you have a mellower read, usually you want to, but you definitely don't want to finish with the mellow read.
No.
Well, unless it's your weakest of the blot. Another thing, there's a lot of psychology involved here. Assume, even though they tell you never to assume, assume that the listener, the casting director or the agent, assume they're never going to get to the end of your demo.
Yeah.
Because they may not. They may not even get past 10 seconds. If you're lucky, they'll play the first 10 seconds and go, whoa, well, now we found the voice we need.
There's something.
And you're done. But conversely, I wouldn't put your best one last, because there's probably a 90% chance they're
nobody's going to make it.
Not going to get there.
Yeah.
Not at least on the first round. Maybe if you make it into the final 3 and they're really getting down to the nitty-gritty and they're playing, their talent A, B, and C, maybe then they'll play the full demos just to see what's really there. But listen, you don't know what they're looking for.
No, we don't. We take our best shot, but your demo, the first one you make anyway, should be commercial demo, because like you're saying, we want to showcase what range you have, if any, at this point in your career. But sometimes I get students will be like, "Oh, my friend's a musician. He has a recording studio. He's just going to do the demo for me." And I don't agree that is the best route to go, because I don't feel that unless you know about voiceover or you've ever mixed voiceover demo, that I don't feel that just anybody can mix a voiceover demo, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are 2 parts to the demo. There's record. This is also assuming somebody doesn't have actual recorded content to use, that they're creating the demo entirely from scratch. And most of the students that go through Voiceover Gurus don't.
Are from scratch,
Are from scratch. So there really are 2. That's a 2-pronged question that you're bringing up, like your friend's studio. It's okay to record the actual spots in your friend's recording studio if they have decent setup and they get a good sound, and you're happy with your delivery, and it's a true DIY project. Then that's fine. But addressing your comment that you made about putting the demo together. So let's say you have 5 or 6 pieces now, 5 or 6 spots that you want to put into the demo. No, I agree with you. That should not be done by your friend with the studio, unless that friend is a producer of commercial content, and they know because there are a lot of things that go into putting together the demos, and it's not just like putting this 5 pieces into Pro Tools and then just chopping them up, and there's a lot of we mix them, we master them, we change EQ and compression to make it sound more broadcast like it actually was on the radio or TV. We craft them. There's a lot of, and with craft, I mean skill and, the artisanal touch. There is a difference. There's a difference between a loaf of Wonder Bread and something made in an artisanal bakery.
Right.
And that's it. We're that bakery. We're not the Wonder Bread factory that's pumping out loaves of white bread. You mentioned demo houses. There are demo houses that literally just do that. They'll send us your demos, and in 48 hours we'll kick you back your demo for however much more money than it should cost, and and go with God.
I'm getting more and more students that are coming because they've had their demos done at another production house. And they've spent a fortune.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to the demos, and a lot of them are like overly produced, where there's too many whistles and bells, and the voice is drowning. It's not, and we got to hear the voice. Yeah.
Yeah, there's well, again, some of that has to do with how they're mixed now. In some cases, we don't do the actual mixing of the voice and the music. That's given to us already done, like if it was done in your friend's studio and they mixed it. Well, we can't undo that. The bed is already made, so I can't roll back the sheets and peel it back. But there are a lot of demos that we get here that you're coaching people or Alyssa's working with, and we just get the raw voiceover file, just the voice by itself, and then I will actually create what I call the ISOs, the isolated spots, the individual spots, the spot for Nike, the spot for Nissan, and so on and so forth. I'll choose the right music bed, I'll choose the right sound effects or the most appropriate for that spot. And then I have the isolated finished version, which is the full spot, the 30-second or the 60-second.
That the student can use as well.
Well, that they should have. And actually, we should talk about that. Let's put a pin in that for 1 second. So now you've got the 5 or 6 isolated, separate, standalone pieces that are now going to become part of the composite, and that's going to be that 60 or 90-second demo. And those are now mixed, but we now do things with them in just terms of fading out and even knowing where to cut, like how much of a spot to use before we cut out into the next one. It's not a formula, it's not, every spot is 20 seconds until we hit the 60-second mark or the right. It's not, you have to, that comes from experience. I mean, I've been doing this more than 30 years, but I say 30 years because I don't want to make myself sound that fucking old, So, with that experience comes knowledge, and it also comes feel. I'll listen to it. I listen over again. I mean, you've come in the studio, seen me working on these things. Yeah. I'll close my eyes, and then I'll say, yeah, this is enough of this spot. It's time to get to the next one. That's what I do internally. I don't actually say that, but.
Now, your background, I think, is really helpful because you're a musician, first off. You've been a musician since you were a kid, and then you worked in that industry as well. So I know when I hear your demos, because I'm a music lover and I have an ear. I mean, not a musician, but I can tell that you know how to place, like there might be a flourish of some instrument here or, you know, and it's like a work of art in a way.
I do approach the creation of demos differently than probably most people do, because of my background in music. I don't care what at the stage that I get these recordings in. I don't care what the spot is for or like the dialogue, the narrative. I turn the voice into a musical instrument. So I'm listening to it as if it's a saxophone.
That's cool.
That's not to say I don't listen to what it is. Obviously, if it's a spot for a hospital for the cardiac program, I'm not putting like
rock music,
Megadeth behind it, right? So yeah, I will listen to it. I'll read it. I'll read the script. I know what the content is, and I have a pretty good idea of what kind of music I want to use. But sometimes it's not music. I mean, recently I did one. It was I think it was a mock spot for Nike. And it literally just started with heavy, running.
Yes.
And then the sneakers. So it started with like that. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of went into the sound of sneakers on like in the forest, kind of crunching. And it was more of a sound tapestry. But even that, to me, was musical. I thought I was hearing it as an orchestra, as something that was evolving. And again, not to tip my own hat, I don't think most people are putting together voiceover demos. Certainly not the Wonder Bread factories that I mentioned. They're not doing that.
Right.
So that's what differentiates, let's say a really good demo. It's something that there's some care and skill. I don't do 10, 15 of these a day,
No.
I'm doing a couple a week, 3, 4 a week. So luckily I'm busy doing other things, and I handle these demos, when they come in.
Ours is more of a boutique approach with all of this.
Yeah, not a factory at all. Artisanal.
It's artisanal. I like that word. I do love the musical aspect of it, but it's like the music supports the voice, which is being showcased, and it's not drowning out the voice, which is extremely important.
Right. It's fighting it. In fact, I will oftentimes mix a demo. I'll mix the voice higher than the music than I would if it was an actual broadcast spot, because we are trying to feature the voice.
Right. That's the whole point.
And the music will be there, but like you said, to support it.
Right.
Yeah.
To be a nice, I don't know. It's the way that it's laid out really comes out beautifully, and I think that has a lot to do with your ear, your musical ear.
Thanks. So we put a pin in the whole ISO thing.
Yeah.
So it is important. So you're going to have your 60, 90-second composite demo. That's your reel, right? You're going to have that. But it is really important to have those isolated pieces. So if you are having demo material, demo content created by a third party, make sure that you have access to that. And the reason, if it's not obvious, is that you may see an audition come through online for a voice that sounds like X, and you're like, oh, well, that's me. But you may not have time right then and there to record a custom audition. Maybe they don't even want a custom audition. They might just say, send your best example of you sounding like a horse to this, respond to this. And you're like, holy shit, I have that spot. I have me sounding like a horse. So you can go in and send them just that ISO, that isolated spot, individual spot.
What kind of commercial is this?
It's horse food. But you may have a spot that you've got it. Oh, sure, perfect. I'll just email them this. Hey, Mr. Mrs. Casting person, I have a spot that sounds like me. Me as a horse. Here you go. And then they don't have to listen and trudge through the 90 seconds of stuff that's not appropriate. So there you go. That's one reason why. And obviously, it's just why not have as much as you can have, but.
Because sometimes people want to rearrange the order, or they want to put it into like a voice zam player. Or some people can create a player, like Wix comes with a little player that you can, embed into your website. Right. And then you can decide, because maybe you're like, no, I like this read better or whatever. It gives you that freedom.
All right, like you said with the players, it's kind of like a little playlist, right? So your track one could be your composite demo, and then track 2 through 5, 6, or whatever will be your isolated individual
all the
ones.
Pieces.
And so you definitely want to have access to that.
I know that the prices range very greatly for demo production, and I'm not going into that because, to each his own, and whoever wants to charge what they want to charge. Yeah. But you just do need to make sure that you're comfortable with the fact that you should. The old days, it was like rent a studio and a producer and spend 2 hours and get coached for a demo. That's how it was back when I was starting out. And now, that is our approach is way more organic, where, Alyssa and I will work with you and we'll have you record everything if you're remote. And we do it over a period of time. So that way we can get the best read out of you, as well as something that we know that you can duplicate on your own and not need to be coached with. But that's
one thing that I like, because I don't have to listen to all the garbage. When you guys give me the recordings, it's like
clean.
Here's the silver plate of
Yes.
Here's the filet mignon. Finish the meal.
Jazz it up for me. I know, it's a cool process. So have you ever heard a demo that's like really, really bad, that had like bad characteristics?
Sure. Well, as a producer, I get a lot of really bad demos.
So what's like a no-no? What's a no-no? Ooh, leaving you with a little cliffhanger there. So join us for part 2 next time of my chat with Dave Goldberg, where we find out what not to do on your demo and what to do on a great demo. See you then.
Thanks for listening to the Voiceover Gurus podcast. Real talk about the voiceover industry. Learn more about us and get coaching at voiceover.guru.